Hello everyone, welcome to Microcontroller Embedded System class. Here we are going to continue with the previous session of ARM programming using assembly. Let's begin with today's session with allocating variables to register numbers. Consider you are writing an assembly routine. When you write an assembly routine, it is better to use the names for the variable instead of using the register numbers. As we use the names for the variables, this will allow you to change the allocation of the variables to register numbers easily. And also, as you're using your register names, it will increase the clarity and also the readability of the optimized code. As ARM operations are orthogonal with respect to your register number, in other words, you can say that register number do not have any specific rules. Now, in case if you swap all the occurrences of the two registers, for example, your RA and RB in the routine, then the function's routine does not change. There are several cases where the physical number of the register is important. Coming to the argument register, the ATPCS convention, it will define that the first four arguments to a function should be placed in the registers R0 to R3, that is R0, R1, R2 and R3. Further remaining arguments are placed on the stack. And the return value always must be placed in the R0. Coming to registers used in load or store multiple. Load and store multiple instructions such as load multiple and store multiple, they operate on a list of registers in the order of ascending register number. Now, if in case it is R0 and R1, they appear in the register list, then the processor will always load or store R0 using a lower address than R1 and so on. Now coming to load and store double word. So in the load and store double word, that is load register double word and store register double word instructions, they are introduced in your ARM version 5 and they operate on a pair of registers with the sequential register numbers such as RD and RD plus 1. But your RD must be an even register number. Coming to the next topic is using more than 14 variables. Now, if you need more than 14 local 32-bit variables in a routine, then we need to store some of the variables on the stack. Since the innermost loop has the greatest performance impact, the standard procedure here is to work outwards from the innermost loop of the algorithm. Coming to next is making the most of available registers. On low store architecture such as the ARM, it is more efficient to access the values held in the registers than the values that is held in the memory. Here we are making use of several tricks in order to fit several sub 32-bit length variables into a single 32-bit register. Because of this, you can reduce the code size as well as increase the performance. Coming to the final optimization tool, that is conditional execution. Here the processor code can conditionally execute most of the ARM instructions. As it can execute most of the ARM instructions, your conditional execution is based on one of the 15 condition codes. In the case, if you don't specify a condition, the assembler by default will execute in always condition. The other remaining 14 conditions are now split into 7 pairs of complements. The condition is dependent on the 4 condition code flags. They are negative flag, zero flag, carry flag and overflow flag stored in the CPSR register. Default, your ARM instructions do not update the negative, zero, carry and overflow flag in the ARM CPSR register. For most of the instructions to update these flags, we append an S suffix to the instruction mnemonic. The only exception is given to the comparison instruction as they do not write to the destination register, as their main purpose is to update the flags. Here, by combining your conditional execution and the conditional setting of the flags, we can implement a simple if statement without any need for the branches. Since this improves efficiency, the branches can take many cycles and also it can reduce the code size. Consider an example where the following C code converts an unsigned integer into a hexadecimal character. So the code here is with the if-else loop. Now we can write this in an assembly conditional rather than in the conditional branches. So the sequence works since the first add does not change the condition codes and the second add is still in the conditional on the result of the compare. Consider the next example where the following C code identifies if C is a vowel. In assembly, you can also write using the conditional comparison. As soon as one of the TEQ comparison detects a match, the Z flag is set in the CPSR register. So what do you mean by a TEQ? TEQ is nothing but test equivalence. The next instruction, test equivalence not equal to instruction, have no effect as they are conditional on Z equal to 0. The final instruction, that is add equal to, will increment the count of the vowels. Whenever all the comparisons in the if statement are of the same type, then you can use this particular method. In this example, the following C code detects if C is a letter. In order to convert an assembly code, we use unsigned comparison to detect this range and conditional comparisons to chain together the ranges. Coming to the last topic of this session is the looping constructs. Most of the routines that are critical to performance will contain a loop. Also, a point to remember is that the ARM loops are fastest when they count down towards 0. Further, in this topic, let us see how to implement these loops efficiently in the assembly. And also, we have some examples of how to unroll the loops for maximum performance. Beginning with decremented counted loops. For a decrementing loop of n iterations, the loop counter I, it counts down from n to 1 inclusively. Then the loop terminates with I equal to 0. The efficient implementation is as shown. Here the loop overhead consists of a subtraction setting the condition codes followed by a conditional branch. On ARM7 and ARM9, this overhead costs 4 cycles per loop. Now, if I is an array index, then we may want to count down from n minus 1 to 0 instead that we can access an array element to 0. We can also implement this in the same way by using a different conditional branch as shown below. Coming to unrolled counted loops. Here the loop unrolling reduces the loop overhead by executing the loop body multiple times. So this particular unrolled counted loops also has the problems to overcome. Next is multiple nested loops. Here we can combine the loop counts within a single register by placing the innermost loop count at the highest bit positions. Coming to the next looping construct, that is negative indexing. This loop structure counts from -n to 0 in steps of size step. In logarithm indexing, this loop structure counts down from 2 power n to 1 in powers of 2. For example, if n is equal to 4, then it counts 16, 8, 4, 2 and 1. The following loop structure, it counts down from an n bit mask to a 1 bit mask. For example, here it is if n is equal to 4, then it will be counting from 15, 7, 3 and 1, and the code is as shown below. The negative indexing and logarithm indexing comes under other counted loops. Sometimes you may want to use the value of a loop counter as an input to the calculations in the loop. In that cases, it is not always desirable to count down from n to 1 or n minus 1 to 0. So for example, you may want to select a bit out of a data register one at a time. So in that case, we may want the power of the 2 mask that doubles each of the iteration. So that is why we are using the counted loops.